Good morning, everyone. We got to do a little bit better than that. Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to the 5th Annual Armed Forces Day. Could all who are please able to rise for the presentation of the colors by the Grafton Job Corps Color Guard, Carmelo De Jesus, Shayla Rodriguez, Control Bolton, and Devin Kovich.
Arms. Post flags. Order arms. Right phase. Forward march.
Please remain standing, actually. Thank you. Would Ben Cohen please join us? Ben is a freshman at Assabet Valley Regional Technical High School, and he is also a member of Assabet's Junior ROTC and of Shrewsbury's Boy Scout Troop 114. Ben is going to lead us in the pledge. He's also going to invite up fellow members of Troop 114 first and introduce them to help him.
Morning. Members of Troop 114, please join me up here. Attention. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now I'd like to invite up Carly O'Brien, who is our rising junior at the University of New Hampshire, to sing the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us here on our Armed Forces Day to pay tribute to our courageous, active, and retired servicemen and women for their service, sacrifice, and commitment to protecting our freedom. Today is an opportunity to celebrate all military service and honor those among us in our communities that commit themselves to a life of service. Today is an opportunity for our next generation to offer words of gratitude and understanding of the noble sacrifice of service. And today is an opportunity for those of us who have not served to illustrate our heartfelt gratitude to those proud members of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard among us. Could I please ask that all active and retired military personnel who are here to please stand so we can give you a warm welcome. One special Marine among us today, John Anandoli. John is seated at this table over here, or maybe you can, John, would you raise your hand, please? Just raise your hand, John. John is a 93-year-old proud Marine who fought in World War II for us. Please give him a big round. Thank you for your service. Thank you all for your service to our country. I'd also like to acknowledge the service of family members. No one serves in our military without having the strong support of family members to do so. So we have two Blue Star mothers here today, Diane Lewandowski and Karen Bellevue. Could you please rise so we can thank you both? If there's any other program here this morning that was developed to highlight the community members from the 4 towns that comprise the Central Mass Veterans Service District of Grafton, Northborough, Shrewsbury, and Westborough. I want to acknowledge and thank Shrewsbury Housing Authority Vice Chair Gail Vigin, Vice Chair of the Board of Selectmen Beth Casavant, and Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services Vice Chair Melissa Pride-Foz, as well as my Legislative Director Melissa Bellevue, who did a fantastic job as always pulling this event together this morning. I also want to acknowledge Kelly Barner and her daughter Anna, who helped us at check-in, along with Steve Vigend. And I want to say a special happy day to Jessica Bellevue. Jessica, where are you? Stand up, please. Today is Jessica Bellevue's 25th birthday, and she picked up Art Dobson to make sure it was here this morning. The delicious pastries you're enjoying this morning and the fruit come from Assabet Valley Regional Technical High School Culinary Program. They always do a terrific job. I also want to thank John O'Brien, who is helping us on sound this morning, as well as Julia Casavant, who is a sophomore at Assabet Valley Regional Technical High School, who is videotaping on behalf of Shrewsbury Media Connection this morning. Thank you also to the Scandinavian Athletic Club for allowing us to host this event here each year. I'd like to take a moment to introduce our elected and appointed officials who are here with us this morning, and certainly please let me know if I miss anyone. We're honored to have here with us again, and I thank him for coming every year, Congressman Jim McGovern. Thank you, Jim. We also have with us the Director of Veterans Affairs at the Mass National Guard, retired Brigadier General Paul Smith is with us this morning. I'm grateful to have my colleagues who co-host this event along with me here this morning. Collectively, we serve the 4 communities of Grafton, Northborough, Shrewsbury, and Westborough. Senator Michael Moore, Senator Jamie Eldridge, Representative Carolyn Dykema, Representative Danielle Gregoire, Representative David Meridian, and Representative Harold Naughton. Please give them a round of applause. We have here from our Shrewsbury Board of Selectmen, we have Beth Casavant, I mentioned, our newest elected selectman, John Samia, and Jim Kane. We also have, joining us shortly from our school committee will be Jason Palich. Monsignor Michael Rose has just walked in, who's going to lead us in our closing prayer later on. Thank you for being here, Monsignor Rose from St. Mary's. We have Justin Souza, who is our Central Mass Veterans Service District Director. You'll be hearing from him in a bit. And we also have our former Director, Adam Costello, here this morning. And then we have Mindy McKenzie, who's a State Committee woman for the 2nd Worcester District. So thank you all for joining us here this morning. I hope that you enjoy the program that we have put together. And I'm going to ask my colleague, Representative David Meridian, to come back up, please.
Good morning again, everyone. For those here that I haven't had the pleasure of introducing myself to, my name is David Meridian. I get the honor of being the state representative of the 9th Worcester District, the communities of Grafton, Northridge, and Upton. And while myself and my colleagues get to co-host the event with Representative Kane, truthfully, we wouldn't all be here if it wasn't because of her strong championing of this cause and of the day and kind of doing all of the details and the logistics. So please give Hannah and everyone who helped her on. Today marks our 5th year that we get together to honor all of our active and retired military personnel and their sacrifice to our country. Here in Massachusetts, we are fortunate enough to be the home to many men and women who have dedicated their lives to protect the United States of America. Without their valiant effort, we would not be blessed with the many freedoms we are lucky to have today. I personally want to take a moment to thank each and every individual who participates in the United States military. This year we have the honor of recognizing Armed Forces Day with someone who truly does all he can to assist our veterans, Justin Souza. Since taking on his role as director of the Central Massachusetts Veterans Service District, Justin's goal has always been to educate and assist veterans in obtaining benefits that might be available to them. Justin goes way beyond that role, though. Justin is a friend, Justin's a mentor, Justin's a companion to many of our veterans who need a friend. Justin's truly a rock star, and Justin had big shoes to fill from Adam. Prior to his career as a director, Justin served as a combat medic in Afghanistan in 2011 and was a member of the Massachusetts Army National Guard from 2011 to 2014. His extensive knowledge of local, state, and federal veteran services is being put to good use by the veterans he serves. He continues to work tirelessly to ensure that our active and our retired military are well taken care of. And his presence here today shows a strong dedication to the armed forces and to our district. Ladies and gentlemen, Justin Souza.
Thank you. Thank you very much, David. Those were very kind. I'm here to speak a little bit about the history of the Armed Forces Day. After the experience with the British Army, the post-revolution American population was leery of large-standing militaries. Instead, the United States relied on an army of potential, a force that could be raised as needed from the general population in emergencies to supplement the minimal permanent military forces that the U.S. maintained up through World War II. With the end of World War II, the Cold War brought about an inter-service rivalry that grew around the independent services competition over funding, organization, and national military strategy. With the Cold War intensifying, President Harry S. Truman and Congress legislated the National Security Act of 1947 in order to mitigate the inter-service antagonism and unite the different branches. This act dissolved the War Department, creating the Department of the Air Force, and joining it together with the Department of the Army and the Department of the Navy in forming the National Military Establishment, or NME. The NME was headed by the Secretary of Defense. The act was amended in 1949, renaming the NME as the United States Department of Defense. With the U.S. military now under one centralized department, it made sense to replace the separate branch days with a single unified day to honor the various services together. To that end, on August 31st, 1949, Secretary of Defense Lewis Johnson declared that Armed Forces Day would replace the individual celebrations for the different military branches. In an excerpt from the Presidential Proclamation of February 27, 1950, announcing the creation of the day, President Truman stated, "Armed Forces Day marks the first combined demonstration by America's defense team of its progress under the National Security Act toward the goal of readiness for any eventuality. It is the first parade of preparedness by the unified forces of our land, sea, and air defense." He praised the work of the military services at home and across the seas by saying, "It is vital to the security of the nation and to the establishment of a desirable peace." May 20th, 1950 marked the first National Armed Forces Day. The theme for that day was Teamed for Defense, representing the unification of all military forces under one government department and their role in protecting American freedom together, at home and abroad. The first Armed Forces Day was celebrated by parades, open houses, receptions, and air shows. Today, many similar events and activities take place, such as the events held here today. Thank you very much.
Good morning. How is everyone this morning? Great. I just want to wish everyone here a happy Armed Forces Day. It's great to have an opportunity to be here with you this morning. I want to echo the thanks to Representative Keane for putting this together and giving all of us, honestly, an opportunity to say thank you to our veterans. So thank you to all of you who have served here today, as well as the military families and certainly our Gold Star mothers. My name is Carolyn Dykema. I represent the community of Westboro, along with Representative Keane and Representative Gregoire. I also represent the communities of Holliston, Hopkinton, and Westboro. And I'm here today, of course, to participate in this wonderful ceremony, but also I have the privilege of introducing someone who I have the good honor of calling a friend, who has been a friend to Central Massachusetts for a very long time. He is a passionate advocate for his constituents when he goes to Washington, D.C. on their behalf. He has certainly been a longtime supporter of our veterans, is a man of principle, a man of passion and compassion. Our good friend, Congressman Jim McGovern. And I want to point out, as Jim is coming up to join us, that most recently he introduced a bipartisan piece of legislation in Washington which would honor our atomic veterans, who some of you may be familiar with. They are veterans who were exposed to dangerous levels of radiation working with nuclear material back during the 50s. So Congressman, for all you do for all of us, and especially our veterans, please join us here today.
Well, let me thank my friend Carolyn for the generous introduction. I'm a big fan, and we've known each other for many years, and I appreciate her dedication to her constituents, but to a lot of the causes that so many of us who are gathered here care deeply about. And I too want to thank my other colleagues, but especially Hannah Kane. You know, during spring break, everybody comes down to Washington to visit. And a lot of people this year came down from Shrewsbury and surrounding communities. And I usually stay, even though we're off, for a couple of days to give tours, because during spring break, the United States Capitol is like the Mass Pike during rush hour. You don't move, right? And I lost count of how many people from Hannah's district would come up and say, "I know Hannah Kane, I know Hannah Kane," and I'd say, "So do I." But here's the deal. All of them said the same thing, and that is, we like her because she cares. And I can't think of any better compliment that anybody in public office can get from their constituents than to be characterized as somebody who cares. So she has pulled us together for 5 years to honor our veterans on Armed Forces Day, and I am personally very grateful for the opportunity to be here all the time. So I want to say thank you to Hannah. And to everybody here, I want to thank all of our veterans and those who serve, those who are currently serving, the families of our veterans, for their incredible service to our country. You know, serving in our armed forces requires an incredible amount of sacrifice. I think that too often, too many of us take for granted. The Library of Congress has this project. It's called the Veterans Oral History Project. And I want to make sure that as many people participate in it as possible. But basically what it is an attempt to get veterans on tape talking about their experiences, you know, before they went into the service, when they went in, you know, their experiences in times of war, their experiences being deployed halfway around the world. And I went to the Library of Congress a few weeks ago just to listen to some of the oral histories. And it's amazing the amount, the courage and the bravery and the sacrifice that so many have displayed in love of this country. You know, we talk about, you know, all of our veterans, and we talk about all those who served in this war or that war or whatever. And sometimes I think we talk about it in such generalities that we don't always connect with how personal all this is. And this oral history project gave me an opportunity to kind of refresh my memory of those who left to defend our country during World War II, those who went and fought in Korea, those who fought in Vietnam, and even those who have been fighting in the more recent conflicts. People left their families, left their loved ones behind, left their fiancé behind, and never knew where they were going to come back. But all of them, everybody, to a person, says that they served because they love this country. They honor the values of this country. They value our freedom. They value all the liberties and the rights that we have here. And I think we need to figure out a way to get these histories, these oral histories, into our classrooms, because it's really inspiring. And I think a lot of young people, when I visited our troops over in Afghanistan, you know, I asked, you know, what caused you to serve? And oftentimes you'd hear it's because my dad served, or my mother was a medic, or my grandfather served in World War II, but basically they were inspired by people in their own families who sacrificed so much on behalf of this country. And I think the veterans represent the very best of America. And I am so honored to be here to be able to say thank you. And you know, I say this all the time, you know, I have 2 kids, you know, both of them are in college now, but there's not a day that I don't wake up and thank God that they were born in this country, the greatest, the freest country in the history of the world. And I know that we are that way not by accident. We are that way because of the sacrifices that were made. I'll just say one final thing. Carolyn mentioned the issue of the atomic veterans. I don't know how many of you know a lot of the stories about the atomic veterans, but they were deployed in areas where there was a lot of testing on nuclear weapons, and they were exposed to radiation, but they were sworn to secrecy. So when they came back, they couldn't tell their family members where they had been. They couldn't even tell their doctors what they had been exposed to. And so many of them developed cancer, many of them developed other illnesses related to that, but could never, ever, ever talk about it. When George H.W. Bush was president, and he began to open up the true story behind a lot of our atomic veterans, and Bill Clinton followed up on it, and they were able to talk to their doctors, and they were able to get the benefits and the medical attention that they deserved. But we're trying to get them a medal, a recognition for their service. And it shouldn't be controversial, but unfortunately it is because of the bureaucracy. But the bottom line is these individuals sacrificed as well. So we're moving in that direction. But I'll close by again saying thank you for all of you for being here. Know that all of us in our delegation here, we are committed to helping our veterans, and I'm hoping in the not too distant future that we're going to be able to announce together that we're going to increase the VA's footprint in central Massachusetts so that people who want to get care don't have to drive to Northampton or Boston to get it. That we can get it right here in central Massachusetts, hopefully at the University of Massachusetts. We're working on this for a long time. I hope that we're getting closer and closer to that announcement, and when we get there, you're all invited, and we can celebrate a great victory for our veterans here in central Massachusetts. But again, from the bottom of my heart to everybody here, thank you so very much.
Good morning. Senator Michael Moore. Thank you all for being here, and I also want to extend my thanks to Representative Kane for putting this together for 5 years now. Every day, we still have people fighting overseas, and I think a lot of us forget that they're still there, and we go on with our lives and not really paying attention to what's happening. But I have the pleasure of reintroducing Carly O'Brien to sing God Bless America.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Good morning. I'm Representative Hank Naughton. I'm from the town of Clinton, but I also represent the great town of Northborough in this district, and some of my great friends from the Picard Post. Gentlemen, thank you for being here, and thank all you do every day. Let's hear it for the Picard Post in Northborough. You're doing great work, and just come out and see next Monday. All due respect to all the other towns here, what a fantastic job the town of Northborough does, led by the Picard Post on Memorial Day and on Veterans Day and throughout the year. Hannah, thank you very much. As someone who has done a lot of work in veteran services and military affairs at the State House, there is every time I need support for something, I not only can look to Hannah, she's probably leading the way on any issue for veterans, and we better fall in behind her. So Hannah, thank you very much for this. And before we go any further, I really have to say, because as someone, again, who addresses a lot of veterans groups, to all the Vietnam veterans in the building, welcome home. Welcome home. You didn't hear that enough 50 years ago. And the benefits and services that those of us who have served in Iraq and Afghanistan, we stand on your shoulders. We stand on the shoulders of giants. I thank you. It's now my pleasure to introduce to you not just a colleague in the military, and it's tough for someone who's just a major to call a brigadier general a colleague. It's not like we're really equivalent, but also a personal friend. Brigadier General Paul Gregory Smith, we call him Greg or General, is the current director of Veteran Services for the Massachusetts National Guard. And that's a capstone of 35-year stellar career, both in the National Guard and in federal service, leading our Guard troops. He was a Joint Task Force Commander, Joint Task Force Massachusetts, and he acted in that capacity at some of the most difficult times during the course of the recent history of this Commonwealth, including the Western Mass tornadoes, Hurricane Sandy, and the 2013 Boston Marathon bombings, and led the National Guard to success in each of those instances. During that career, which he started, he has commanded at every level, from platoon to company to battalion to brigade to Joint Force Commander. He's received the Legion of Merit, and those of you in the room who know what that means know what that means. The Meritorious Service Medal with 4 Oak Leaf Clusters, Army Commendation Medal with 4 Oak Leaf Clusters, Air Commendation Medal, and medals from several foreign governments. He's received his commission through the ROTC program right here in Worcester at WPI, and is also a graduate of the Army War College. And he currently, in addition to all his duties with the National Guard, is also teaches in the Master of Science in Counterterrorism program at Nichols College, a program that I've had the pleasure of dealing with him. Ladies and gentlemen, Brigadier General Paul Gregory Smith.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for taking time on this beautiful Saturday morning when I'm sure you all would be, like me, prefer to be home mowing the lawn. No, I'm quite glad to be here. Thank you. But thank you to Representative Kane for organizing this wonderful event. I also want to give a shout out to all of our elected officials who took time out of their Saturday morning time with their families to be with us today. Representative Kane, Representative Meridian, Senator Moore, Representative Gregoire, my friend, Major Naughton, who continues to serve in the Massachusetts National Guard, Senator Eldridge, and Representative Dykemoe. If you would please join me in giving them a round of applause for what they do in our veterans. Congressman McGovern has also taken time this morning. I don't want to embarrass him, but I'm gonna. Because what sticks in my mind whenever I see him on TV or read about him in the newspaper, I will never forget a Christmas Eve when he joined me on a cold, snowy day and spent most of that Christmas Eve not home with his family, but welcoming a Transportation Corps unit home to Worcester after their year of service in Iraq. That's not just talking the talk. That's walking the walk when it comes to support our veterans. Thank you, Congressman. I also want to give a shout out to the Westboro High School Band, to the Boy Scouts who were with us today, for the Grafton Job Corps Color Guard, all of whom have done a wonderful job. But I think we also need to appreciate that when you're a teenager on Saturday morning, the biggest thing you like to do is sleep. But they got up to be with us and share their talents. So please, let's give them a round of applause. And Carly, whenever I hear God Bless America, even old, crusty generals like me get a lump in their throat sometimes, but I've never heard that done better. Thank you so much for sharing that. And one last shout out, Justin Souza, your veteran service officer, is here with his beautiful family and his children. You're doing a great job keeping them. I always enjoy it when I get a chance to see Justin. Justin and I served together for years in the 26th Yankee Brigade, and he is a distinguished combat veteran, service in Afghanistan as a combat medic, serving and healing his fellow soldiers. Another person who not only talks the talk, walks the walk. Thank you, Justin. So I also want to offer my thanks to all the veterans who are here today. Those of you who served in the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, and Coast Guard. You stepped forward to safeguard our nation and protect our way of life. And whether you served in the frigid North Atlantic, the heat of the Middle East, or in the skies over our country, patrolling our airways to make sure we're safe. We appreciate your service and your sacrifice. And whether you manned an office keyboard, a spatula in a dining facility, a wrench in a maintenance facility, the controls of an F-16 fighter aircraft, or whether you carried an M4 in a covert operation that you can never talk about, you made our country more secure, our people safer, and you made the world a little bit better place. To our veterans, thank you for your service, your sacrifice, and I'd ask that you please join me in saluting them this morning. So thinking back on 35 years, actually more than 35 years, but lots of years in the military, I had a wide range of experiences. I got to fire some really awesome weapons. I got to travel to some really interesting places. And I learned some rather unique skills, like how to sleep standing up, how to make something that tastes like Thai food by mixing all the ingredients of an MRE packet, and how to smoke a cigar while wearing a gas mask. That I will not give lessons on, and I urge you not to try any of these things at home. But most of all, I had the honor of working side by side with the finest people in our nation. If you'll bear with me, I'd like to talk about two of my heroes this morning. So this year, as we approach Memorial Day, the Massachusetts military community will note the passing of one of our state's greatest heroes, Captain Thomas Hudner, Jr. of the United States Navy. He earned the Congressional Medal of Honor for his actions on December 4th, 1950, while flying his Corsair fighter plane in the skies over the Chosin Reservoir in Korea. His mission was to protect Marines on the ground who were encircled by Chinese troops. But when his wingman, Ensign Jesse Brown, was shot down by Chinese ground fire, Tom Hudner intentionally crash-landed his aircraft next to Brown's on a snowy mountainside. This was in enemy territory. Over the next several hours, Tom attempted to free the badly injured Ensign Brown from the burning wreckage of his aircraft. As night began to fall, Tom had no choice but to be evacuated by a rescue helicopter. Ensign Brown unfortunately died of his injuries. Tom's request to return to the crash site on the following day was denied. It was simply too dangerous. Tom went on to live a long and productive life in Concord, Massachusetts. He served as the Massachusetts Director of Veterans Services, and he was active, very active, in veterans groups. I knew him later in life as a gracious, humble, compassionate man, always a gentleman. He was quick with a laugh, and he rarely spoke about his actions during the Korean War. Although Captain Tom Hudner was unable to save his wingman in the snows of Korea, he left us an enduring example of loyalty and personal courage. And he embodied the creed that we live by, of never leave a comrade behind. Captain Tom Hudner passed on in November 2017, but his spirit and his courage are remembered by those of us who are honored to know him. And they're preserved in one of the Navy's newest destroyers, DDG-116, the USS Thomas Hudner, was built at the Bath Iron Works in Maine and launched in Boston Harbor on December 1st, 2018. As long as the Hudner continues to safeguard our seas, Tom's legacy of heroism will live on. The other hero that I want to talk about today never received a medal. She never served in combat, and she was never promoted to a high leadership position. But she was the finest soldier I ever knew. Staff Sergeant Ellis Staples was the chaplain's assistant assigned to our battalion when I was a lieutenant colonel. When we went to the field and we loaded up our weapon systems and our concertina wire and our tentage and all the stuff that we needed to conduct our maneuvers, Ella was loading trucks with trash bags full of pillows, blankets, hot cocoa mix. God knows what was in those bags. And I always used to tease her about it, jokingly that she'd have to back off on the pillows and blankets so maybe we could get some ammunition in the trucks. But she'd wag her finger and she'd say to me, "You know, sir, some of those young privates are going to forget that it gets cold out there at night." And as the chaplain's assistant, and by the way, we never had a chaplain, Staff Sergeant Staples was exempt from combat duties, except really for her own personal protection. But I remember one night, as I was walking the defensive perimeter, probably just to make sure everybody was awake, I heard an unfamiliar voice say, "Halt! Who goes there?" I was a little puzzled, but we exchanged the challenge and password, as you do in a tactical situation, and I was startled to find Staff Sergeant Ella Staples manning a machine gun emplacement. When I asked what she was doing, she calmly said, "Well, sir, Private Cole was supposed to be on guard duty, but he kind of looked sickly to me. So I said, 'Cole, you go get some sleep. I'm going to take your guard duty tonight.'" What could I say? Once, one winter, Staff Sergeant Staples went home to see her family in Mississippi. She didn't have a driver's license, so it took 2 days by bus for her to get to Mississippi. She needed to be back for duty, and so she hopped on the bus in Mississippi. She rode for 2 days through an awful winter storm. I think she told us at one point that she had to sleep on a bus station floor. Anyway, when she got back to us, she had a terrible fever and a cold. And we said to her, "Ella, you need to go home and take care of yourself." The sergeants begged her to go home. The privates begged her to go home. She would have none of it. So they came to me and they said, "Sir, order her to go home." So I went to see her, and in my firmest colonel tone, I said, "Ella, you need to go home." She looked at me with daggers in her eyes, and she said, "I mean no disrespect, sir, but I have never missed a training day in 21 years, and I'm not about to miss one today." Once again, she had me. I shook my head, and I left her alone. So why am I talking about Ella Staples? Staff Sergeant Ella Staples set an example for all of us about selfless service and duty. And she was the embodiment of my battalion's motto, not for self, but for all. I've lost contact with her over the years, but I've remembered her example through all sorts of situations. Somehow I hope that she knows how much she inspired me throughout my career. And I hope she knows that her example made all of us in that battalion better soldiers and better people. So here's the thing. The Armed Forces of the United States, we are the most powerful military force on the planet. The world has never seen anything like this. No nation on earth can stand toe-to-toe in a fight with us and expect to survive. We harness state-of-the-art technology that gives us the cutting edge in warfare and the advantage in intelligence, communications, and lethal weaponry. But that isn't close to being the basis of our strength. Our people is our power. We are powerful because people, our soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, and coasties. And this is going to sound strange to you, but their secret weapon is the love they bring for the American people and for this place we call America. I saw that love glow in the eyes of medical personnel bringing health care to mothers and babies in the villages of South America. I saw that love shine in the eyes of soldiers returning from combat operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I saw that love burn in the eyes of National Guardsmen as they charged into the smoke and carnage of the Boston Marathon bombings. So today, let us give thanks for that legacy of courage left behind by Tom Hudner, the example of selfless service provided by Ellis Staples, and the love that enables our servicemen and servicewomen to lay their lives on the line in defense of our values, our democracy, and our nation, today and every day. So once again, thank you all for being here. Thank you for taking the time to honor our armed forces. May God bless our armed forces, and may God always bless America. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm State Senator Jamie Eldridge, and I want to thank retired Brigadier General Smith for speaking. I've heard him speak many times. He's very powerful and really shows the dedication, commitment, and service that our armed services give back each and every day. So thank you again, Brigadier General, for being here. It is my pleasure to introduce have the Westboro High School Band perform, but I did just want to say it's wonderful to be here with Congressman McGovern, my colleague in the Senate, Senator Michael Moore. I represent the towns of Westboro and Northborough, so I share representing Westboro with Representative Dykema, Representative Gregoire, Representative Kane. I know how much hard work Representative Kane puts into this, as well as her staff. So thank you so much for organizing this once again. And I represent the town of Northborough with Representative Hutton and Representative Gregoire. So with that, I'd like to have the Westboro High School Band perform at the direction of Evan Doyle. Thank you very much.
The Celestial Rose Play is a work by Carl King, American composer from the late 19th, early 20th century. This piece, one he wrote, actually inspired by our military, and in particular Massachusetts. The first muster in Salem in 1636 to those shots that morning in Lexington and Concord in April of 1775. A lot of the great moments in American history and in our nation in general have started here in Massachusetts. This selection is titled appropriately Lexington. It's not solemn nor somber. It's rather ebullient. If you feel compelled to clap along because you're just filled with that patriotic spirit that Carl King's trying to convey, that wouldn't offend us at all. Here we go.
High School Band. Fantastic.
Again, Representative Hank Naughton, I've been asked to say a few words about the history of the United States Army and the involvement here with Armed Forces Day. Before I do that, very quickly, a point of personal privilege, especially to the Marines in the crowd. On Sunday, June 23rd at 2 p.m., the VFW in Clinton is going to be renamed, and many of you know how unusual that is. It's actually going to be named for a living person. Now, how the Muldoons at the VFW pulled that off, I don't know. Posts are not supposed to be named for living people. But Walter Ms. O'Malley, a 93-year-old Iwo Jima veteran who still lives in Clinton, very active man, 2 Purple Hearts. He goes with me every year to the February 19th Iwo Jima memorial ceremony at the State House. And they're renaming the post in his honor. So I'll put that out. Please watch local media. You would all be very welcome. Invited guests include, and we'll see if we can get them in there, but General Dunford, General Kelly, General Mattis, the Commandant of the Marine Corps. We're trying to dot them their representatives, so especially for our Marines and our World War II Marine in the audience. So now that I've diverted to another service about the Army. My path to the U.S. Army was somewhat different. Numerous years ago, I dropped my oldest son off at his first day of preschool. And I'll never forget him running up the ramp with his big backpack on, bigger than him. And after that memory is seared in my mind, I went back to my office to get some files and some paperwork to go to the State House. And one of my assistants had a TV on, and I walked in just in time to see the second plane hit the South Tower. So it was September 11th, and it was the next day that I started the process of joining the U.S. Army, somewhat later in life. But it's one of the most fantastic things, other than my family, that's ever happened to me. I've always seen the Army as the great equalizer. The story of the U.S. Army is the story of America. And like the general, I could tell some interesting stories from various deployments around the world. I have a chaplain story myself, General. Probably not as outstanding as Chaplain's Assistant Staples, but when I was in Iraq, we had Colonel Garibaldi was our chaplain. Catholic priest, about this high, built like a fire hydrant, a New York City accent you could cut with a knife, but he was a great chaplain. He was a Catholic priest. He was great for the soldiers. He was great for morale. As many of you who've been there know, we were restricted from having alcohol. Not that some guys didn't have ways to do it, but we won't go into that. Most of us had no access, but once a week we got a couple hours off and we'd go to Mass. And we'd go to Mass, and Chaplain Garibaldi knew what it was all about. And he'd look out at us, and when it would come time for communion, you know, and the Catholics in the group know we have 2 forms, the body and the blood of Christ, but Chaplain Garibaldi would be, well, you know, we talk so much about the body of Christ. We don't talk enough about the blood of Christ. Chaplain Garibaldi would fill 20 chalices with the sacramental wine and put them on the altar and say, come up and have your fill of the blood of Christ. At the end of that tour, I think the Jewish guys were going to Mass. But the U.S. Army, as was said, just as Massachusetts invented America, Massachusetts invented the U.S. Army with the Massachusetts militia, which has developed into one of the most advanced military forces in the world, the Massachusetts National Guard. Now, I spent 15 years as a reservist, and about a year and a half ago, I'm sure the general will agree with me, I got the bright idea to transfer it over to the Massachusetts National Guard, and I've never looked back. It's the Homeland Security mission, the cyber operations mission they do, is leading this country into the next domains. And it's led by right here in Massachusetts. And I'll just give you a couple statistics about the Mass National Guard before we move on, because it is the basis of all that is great about the United States Army. But we are at its highest state of readiness that it's ever been. And with that current activities in other parts of the world, new threats arising in Iran and China, the Mass Guard is leading the way. It's at the highest state of readiness it's ever been. 89% medical readiness is the highlight. It's the highest of the 3 of the active reserve or guard components. The rate of non-deployable soldiers is at an all-time low of 6%. Many of you know what that means. Modernization towards cyber, new levels of homeland defense and space are being led by our National Guard. And the Army Materiel Command has increased. You know, for years the National Guard was kind of a redheaded stepchild. It's leading the way in being prepared through spare parts, for ammunition stockpiles, and $1.7 billion has been allocated in 2019 and 2020 for Army pre-positioned stock. What does this mean? It means that your soldiers, your citizen soldiers, are at the best state of readiness to protect you, be it a Homeland Security mission or on the federal side for a deployable mission, than they've been in years and years and years. And the leadership of people like General Smith is responsible for that, and I'm a proud member of that National Guard. But let me wrap up. That 4-year-old I mentioned, who I dropped off at his first day of preschool, is about to start his 4th year at the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis this September. So this is very personal to many of us that are in this room. Thank you very much. God bless you. We now have a young lady whose dad I know very well, Kevin Conway, who is a Marine. Kevin, stand up. Kevin is a Marine who has served in harm's way himself, right there. His daughter, Nico, is a 5th grader at the Z School, great school. They always have a great race in the fall. I run in it. And she is one of the first young ladies to join what was formerly known as the Boy Scouts, now the Scouts of America. Nico, come up here. Nico is going to read Armed Forces Day, written by Del Abe Jones. You have it there.
At the urging of Harry Truman, the 3rd Saturday in May, the new Department of Defense has proclaimed it Armed Force Day, a day to thank all services who defend our air, land, and sea, who serve our country proudly, defending the land of the free, all those young men and women, and too, all those oldsters, who march, fly, and set sail as airmen, sailors, Marines, and soldiers. Some of them serve as regular, and some just do the weekends, but all step forward strong and proud when we need someone to send. The times have been changing, and missions they are asked to grow much more complicated than what they used to do. They must be warriors in deployment, which clench fist or a gentle touch, pass ammunition, feed the hungry, build roads, hospitals, and such. A tradition of heroes is what some people say. We all owe them thank you on this Armed Force Day.
Senator Moore again. I am to give a brief history of the United States Marines. The United States Marine Corps were started or created November 10th, 1775 by the Continental Congress. Until today, the Marines have continually served with honor in every single one of our nation's conflicts. By congressional mandate, the U.S. Marine Corps are the nation's rapid response force. Throughout their history, the Corps has successfully adapted to face head-on rapidly evolving global threats to our nation, growing from 368 Marines in 1800 to a force of about 220,000 Marines today. Their motto, Semper Fidelis, or always faithful, became the Marine Corps motto in 1883 and continues to lead the Brotherhood today. As I was looking at the speaking points, I decided to go on, and everyone can do this, Google, to see how the Marine Corps were to describe themselves today. Being a Marine, benefits, and it's not about retirement or salary. Benefits of becoming a Marine include the honor to live and serve with selflessness, never failing to win any battle, to guarantee a better future for all of us.
Sent to fight. The only place I will see his face is in my dreams tonight. He will be gone too many days for my young mind to keep track. I may be sad, but I am proud. My daddy's got your back. I am a caring mother. My son has gone to war. My mind is filled with worries that I've never had before. Every day, I try to keep my thoughts from turning black. I may be sad, but I am proud. My son has got your back.
I am a strong and loving wife with a husband soon to go. There are times I am terrified in ways most never know. I bite my lip and force a smile as I watch my husband pack. My heart may break, but I am proud. My husband's got your back. I am a soldier serving proudly, standing tall. I fight for freedom, yours and mine, by answering this call. I do my job while knowing the things it sometimes lacks. Say a prayer that I come home. It's me that's got your back.
I was asked to give a few facts about the U.S. Navy. The United States Navy was established in 1775 during the Revolutionary War. The Navy played a major role in the Civil War by blocking the Confederacy attacks on the North. It played the central role in the World War II defeat of Japan. It is the most powerful Navy in the world, larger than the next 13 navies in the rest of the world, including the second largest air force in the world, of course, second to the U.S. Air Force. State Senator Moore and I are very honored to serve with the United States Navy Military Intelligence Officer, State Senator Michael Rush from West Roxbury. And it is my pleasure to introduce Westboro Public Schools student and Project 351 Ambassador Jaden Thomas to read Honor Our Military, written by Joanna Fuchs. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Eldridge. Good morning, everyone. It's an honor to be here today to pay respect to the inspirational men and women who do an amazing service to our community, our state, and our country as a whole by joining the armed forces and keeping each and every one of us safe every single day. The following poem is by the amazing poet Joanne Fuchs, who shares a very similar message to the one I just said in her poem, Honor Our Military, which reads, "Let's honor our military, the men and women who serve, whose dedication to our country does not falter, halt, or serve. Let's respect them for their courage. They're ready to do what's right, to keep America safe so we can sleep better at night. Let's support and defend our soldiers whose hardships are brutal and cruel, whose discipline we can't imagine, who follow each order and rule. Here's to those who choose to be warriors and their helpers good and true. They're fighting for American values. They're fighting for me and you. Thank you again for having me here today to represent the town of Westboro and Project 351 and our support of the men and women who serve in our armed forces. Thank you.
Well done, Jaden. That was fantastic. I am here today to offer some words about the U.S. Air Force. And are there any U.S. Air Force veterans here in the audience today? Thank you very much for your service. Hannah's given me the opportunity to recognize the Air Force here every year, and it's always a special thing for me because I consider that I come from an Air Force family, and all of my family members who have served in the Air Force. And I would like to particularly recognize my dad, who we sadly lost last summer since the last time I was here. And obviously a very sad time for us, but one of the special times for our family was going through all of his old photos and his old uniforms and really understanding his military service in a way that we really hadn't before. So, Dad, this is for you. First established as its own branch of the military service in 1947, the U.S. Air Force is the youngest branch of the armed forces. Its predecessor, the Aeronautical Division of the U.S. Signal Corps, was established in 1907 and was the first military organization to operationalize aircraft in the world. The first major air combat operations were conducted during the First World War, which also led to the expansion of the Aeronautical Division into its own section. With the advent of World War II, the need for expanded air combat to transport capacity sparked President Roosevelt's call to expand the Army's air forces to 20,000 craft. This demand created a technological and manufacturing boom that led to countless innovations. After the war, President Truman officially separated the Air Force from the Army into its own service branch in 1947. Today, the Air Force has over 300,000 active duty servicemen and women nationwide, including 12,000 pilots. 20% of Air Force officers are women. Family members supported by active duty personnel number close to 400,000. Nearly 900 active duty personnel and 300 National Guard service members operate out of Hanscom, right here in Massachusetts. And its total economic impact on the Commonwealth is estimated at $6 billion. In addition, the Westover Air Force Reserve Base near Springfield plays host to an additional 5,500 military and civilian workers and serves 3 groups and over a dozen squadrons within the 439th Airlift Wing, making it the largest Air Reserve base in the country. So thank you to all of our Air Force and all of our veterans who are here today. And I have the pleasure of introducing Westboro High School student and Troop 100 Boy Scout Michael O'Keefe to read Liberty's Call by Roger W. Hancock.
Liberty's Call by Roger W. Hancock. American flag flies so proud, flying free, reminding all, enjoy American freedom, financed by liberty's price. Sacrifice of founding fathers, casualties of men today. Men in military serve, maintaining freedom you enjoy. Assignments matter not at all, whatever service duty calls. Danger within the firefight, or support of those who do. Women signed to serve as well, nurturing our liberties. Families of those who serve pay a price in fear and dread. Enjoy today liberty, guardianship of those who serve. American flag flying proud, freely prompting liberty's call. Thank you.
Great job, Michael. Representative Danielle Gregoire couldn't be here this morning, and so we have pinch hitting here Adam Costello, the former director of the Central Mass Veterans Service District, as well as the current manager of veterans programs at Easter Seals, and former veteran, well, he's a veteran now, but he's a former Army member, and just an all-around great guy, and thank you for pitch hitting and telling us about the Coast Guard.
Hello. Hey, so my Army career was a little weird, right? So I went in as a tank crew member. I went from tank crew member to Stryker School to military experiment. My actual job title, if you look at my ERB, is Human Research Volunteer. From there, I was sent to the infantry, and from the infantry, I was deployed as a medic. So it was kind of a bizarre thing. But everywhere I went, at each of those stops, there was somebody from the Coast Guard there, and I can't explain why. I have no idea what they were doing there. But I just took like a 10-minute crash course in Coast Guard history, so please enjoy. Is there anybody from the Coast Guard here? Not one? Not one? All right, well, oh, where? Oh, you don't want to come up? I'm going to blow your mind. Let me tell you things that you didn't even know about the Coast Guard, right? So the Coast Guard was founded on August 4th, 1790. It was formed as part of the Department of the Treasury. In 1967, moved to the Department of Transportation. In 2003, moves to the Department of Homeland Security, and it falls under the Navy for combat operations. So it's had quite a history. The principal federal agency responsible for maritime safety, security, and environmental stewardship in U.S. ports and waterways. And outside of the 100,000 miles of U.S. coast and inland waterways, the United States Coast Guard also safeguards an exclusive economic zone encompassing, this is crazy, 4.5 million square miles stretching from the Arctic Circle to south of the equator from Puerto Rico to Guam. Did you know that? I didn't know that either, right? So that's pretty cool, pretty exciting stuff, and they're all over the place. After I got out of the service, I met one fella from the Coast Guard. We were in the waiting room together, and he said, what did you do in the service? I said, I was in the Army. I was all these weird things. I don't really want to get into it because it's a long story, right? And I said, so what do you do? And he goes, I was in the Coast Guard. And I said, what do you do? He said, oh, you know, we would pull the boats over, and then I was the guy that boarded the boats and worked for drugs, and, you know, I was like, that's amazing stuff. That's scary stuff. So, Coast Guard is pretty cool. I've earned a new respect for it here today. So it's my privilege to introduce now the Assabet Valley Regional Technical High School freshman and Troop 114 Boy Scout Matthew Clark to read Thank a Vet, written by William A. Perdue.
Thank a Vet by William A. Perdue. Many people travel our shores to escape their world of strife and leave their troubled lands behind to enjoy our way of life. But our way of life in America didn't come easy, so don't forget. If you love what we enjoy today, be sure and thank a vet. They shed their blood on foreign shores to keep others free. Many never come back home to their wives and family. Many fathers, sons, and daughters still battle in the distant sand. May they never be forgotten, nor the fight they have at hand. The bells will toll in their honor, as long as we never forget. America is what it is today. Thank God and thank a vet.
Matthew, thank you. And now is the time that everyone, especially my colleagues, get really excited about, because I asked them to join me up here. And Carly, I know you're sick, but will you join in? Even you just will make us sound better if you're up here with us. Everyone here is going to sing, because when you came in, you got a handout that has the medley on it. I would ask that if you are a member of that military branch, will you please stand when we sing the medley of your service? Come on up, everyone. Hank. And anyone else who'd like to come up front is more than welcome. Don't be shy. my honor to introduce a gentleman that I met last fall at Veterans Inc. Jason Aragoni is the Regional Vice President of Home Depot, and he oversees the Home Depot locations throughout New England and the roughly 20,000 associates that work there. Jason's late father proudly served in the U.S. Army, and his uncle was also a colonel in the U.S. Army. Jason and the members of Home Depot were at Veterans Inc. last fall to help install a meditation garden and a walkway, which is one of several projects that they've undertaken at Veterans Inc., donating their time and the resources for these projects. I asked Jason to come here today, and he is joined also by Jeff Perry from Home Depot as well, to talk about why Home Depot has the commitment to veterans it does and how it illustrates that and why it's so important to them. So please join me in welcoming Jason.
Good morning, everyone. First off, just thank you to Representative Kane for having us here today, and also for your partnership every single day. And thank you to all of you who have served this great country. We'll forever be indebted to you. As Representative Kane mentioned, my name is Jason Aragoni, and I proudly get to lead the 20,000 Orange-Blooded Associates to help support our stores throughout New England. Before I worked for Home Depot, I saw the company as the hardware store where my dad shopped and got his tools and toys. And it is true, we sell hammers and nails and such, but what you don't truly get to understand and appreciate until you put on the orange apron is how deeply rooted this company is in its culture and in its values. One of its strongest values is giving back, and our primary focus in our Giving Back campaign is helping support our veterans. Since 2011, Home Depot has helped support over 40,000 veterans across 2,000 communities. In 2016, we made a pledge to donate $250 million by the year 2020 to help support veteran causes. Well, in 2018, we had already reached that goal of $250 million by 2020. In true Home Depot fashion, we were not satisfied where we were at. And when it comes to supporting our veterans, we'll never be satisfied. So I'm pleased to announce that Home Depot is going to re-up its commitment. And by the year 2025, we're going to donate $500 million to help support veteran organizations. So in all honesty, if you ever need anything, you know a veteran that's in any need of anything, please visit your local store and speak with the store manager. We truly are here to help you. Our associates get extremely fired up, not only because of the money we donate, but we like to go out there and work side by side and actually get things done for our veterans. I would also appreciate the time today to speak, and I appreciate you guys letting me address you. But I thought it'd be much more impactful if you got to hear from someone who serves our associates every day, who serves our customers every day, but most importantly, who has served this great country. So please help me introduce one of our human resource managers, retired colonel of the U.S. Army, Jeff Perry.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I just realized I have the unenviable task of being the last speaker that separates you from the refreshment table. So, Congresswoman McGovern, Senators Eldridge and Moore, Representatives Dykema, Maradia, and Naughton, Brigadier General Smith, my fellow veterans and guests, and a special recognition to Representative Kane for organizing this event today to recognize our armed forces. Our armed forces are the envy of the world. It's an all-volunteer force that doesn't fill its ranks from draft or conscription. It's with all volunteers. It's the most diverse organization in our nation. 2.1 million individuals in our active and reserve and National Guard units. They're for every race, gender, religion, from across our country, from every corner geographically. They come together to the training base. And when they arrive at the training base, there is an amazing transformation that occurs. I'm originally from a small town in Massachusetts called Dayton, Massachusetts. There was no diversity in my high school. There was no race diversity in my high school class. My extent of travel had been day trips to Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Hampshire, and Vermont. And I had never flown on an airplane. In my first 24 hours in the military, I flew on an airplane had my head shaved, got yelled at more in that first 24 hours than I did in the prior 20 years. And when I finally got to go to sleep that night, I was in a World War II era open bay barracks with 50 other recruits, half of whom were people of color. My life was transformed in 24 hours. And in the previous or in the future 28 years I was able to serve on active duty, that transformation occurred to me on a daily basis. The military is transformative for me, and it remains transformative for those individuals who serve. And when people ask me, what was that 28 years like? What was on a day in and day out basis that you learned and that you used? And it really just came down to three things. It was about being exposed to great leadership. It was about being in an environment of teamwork. And it was about being in an environment of caring. Of all the experiences and all the environments that I was exposed to as I was asked to serve in various places around the world, there were two things that I always knew. You never felt alone, and if you were ever in trouble, someone was going to come for you, hands down. You always left every day knowing that. Annually, our armed forces recruits about 170,000 citizens and begins transitioning them into the culture of the armed forces. Upon taking the oath of enlistment, you understand your individual needs are now secondary to those of the group. That the squad, the section, the team, the unit are now more important than your individual needs. That you understand implicitly that the person on your left and your right has your back and will take care of you. Because when the hatch slams shut on your combat vehicle, it's all you have is each other. And the more you experience that environment, you realize it just comes back to three things. It comes back to leadership, teamwork, and caring. As I mentioned a moment ago, we recruit about 170,000 new recruits a year into the active component. And after their initial term of enlistment, we want about half to return back to society. The force structure supports about half remaining and half going. And those individuals return, some use their GI Bill. Others pick up a new trade or profession. Some return to the trade or profession that they left, and others seek out a new adventure. But regardless of what they do, they come back different. They come back a little more wise and worldly, a little more experienced in life, and certainly a little more experienced in the great diversity this country offers and the strength behind that diversity. As Jason mentioned, I'm a human resource manager for the Home Depot. And I seek out our veterans at every opportunity that I can, whether it's a newly released veteran coming to us for the first time, or it's a veterans who left service decades ago that are looking for a change in their career. Home Depot welcomes them all. We have also adjusted as our military environment has adjusted. Several of the speakers mentioned today that the tremendous burden that has been felt by our National Guard and Reserve forces over the last 16 years. As you might imagine, there are 40 Home Depot stores in Massachusetts. We have many members of the Guard and Reserve that work for us. And as their life has been impacted and changed, we've changed along with it. We allow a tremendous amount of flexibility so that they attend their drill weekends, they attend their educational opportunities. If through the course of being called to active duty, there's a financial burden placed upon them, Home Depot now has programs in place where they offset the pay that a soldier loses when they go to active duty that if they had stayed to work for Home Depot. I offer you that because when I left the military, I thought I will never find a culture again like it was to serve in the United States Army. A values-based organization, an organization that has a code that it lives by. But I can tell you that if I were to go into the break room of a Home Depot store and I were to close my eyes and listen to the associates speak, and the engagement that they have, and the commitment that they have, And to Jason's point, if you could see them out on a veterans project, whether it's a large-scale project, or we're putting a new set of front steps in a veteran's home, or possibly adding a wheelchair ramp, it brings great joy to my heart every single day. If you could indulge me for just one more moment, I think it's significant, and Representative Kane pointed it out, when we have a World War II veteran in our presence. Most of our World War II veterans are in their 90s now. But when they were young, and they had a spring in their step, they saved the world. And I think that our nation owes them a debt of gratitude from now until their last days. So, sir, it's been my honor to share this hall with you this morning as a World War II veteran. Thank you so much. And thank you for that.
To close our ceremony today, we have Monsignor Michael Rose from St. Mary's Church in Shrewsbury to our closing prayer.
Let us pray. Lord, for the gift of this day, we give you thanks. For the new life of a new spring, emerging ever so slowly, we give you praise. Indeed, this day we join all of creation in longing and yearning for the gift of peace for all people and for all nations. While on that long journey through our history, we give you thanks this day for all the men and women who have served our country in the armed forces. We ask your special blessing upon our veterans and for the men and women who continue to serve here in our country and throughout the world. Pour forth your blessings upon them. Keep them safe as they seek to keep us safe, as they protect and defend our country, as they seek to extend freedom across the world. We know that together, they indeed are the true champions on the road to peace. We ask your blessings upon this Armed Forces Day and the approaching days before Memorial Day. Continue to walk with them, with us, and with our nation all of our days. Amen.
Thank you, Father, and thank you for everyone here who made this such a special day, especially all of the youth members. I would now ask that the Grafton Job Corps Color Guard retire the colors, and then please do stay and enjoy refreshments and fellowship. Thank you.
Ladies. Forward, march.
Thank you again for being here, and I hope you'll join us next year at our 6th annual. Thank you.